So welcome to the Premiere, Getting Started with Premiere live stream. I just wanted to welcome all of you and let you know that we're going to be hitting the ground running pretty darn quick. And what we're going to talk about today is how to get started fast and furious with this software, because time's a wasting and it's really important to learn this, because everybody needs to be able to do everything at this point. So let's talk about some people who can benefit from learning Premiere Pro. Okay, so first of all, the people who can benefit from learning Premiere Pro are film editors, of course. And film editors are sometimes coming from another program like Final Cut 10, or they're coming from Final Cut 7, which is actually surprisingly similar to Premiere Pro. And then there's, of course, people who are coming from Avid Media Composer. And Premiere Pro works great for all of those. But what about the rest of us who aren't film editors necessarily? Graphic designers are more and more being asked to integrate video into their work, whether that means that they're taking a little snippet of it and putting it up as a GIF, or they're putting graphics on top of it and having to do social media ads that aren't just still images, or that are integrating video and graphics, that kind of thing. So graphic designers who need to integrate video with graphics. And then there are those people who are already doing that, right? There's people who are using video and graphics together, motion designers and animators. So character animators and motion designers in the process of making their work often will make what's called an animatic. And so they'll take their storyboards and they will put them timed out to their audio. And while you could do that in After Effects, and you could do that in Photoshop, kind of, or iMovie, God forbid, you probably don't really want to do that because it's not as easy to use in the Adobe workflow as working with Premiere Pro and those things. So for storyboard timing to audio, and in addition to that, whenever I finish animating a shot as a character animator, because I do work as a character animator and a motion designer, I'll take my finished shots and I'll put those end to end in a Premiere Pro timeline as well. Okay, so editing together finished shots. Okay, so that's a useful way that motion designers can use it. And then the rest of us are filming video constantly on our phones, right? And we don't want people to have to watch, like, I don't know, 7 minutes of children releasing butterflies into the wild. We just want to, pick and choose. Not that I'm speaking from experience. We just want to pick and choose like the best moments from an existing video. So best moments from video shot on phones. Okay, more on that later. Now, just a quick thing about phone videos. Sorry, not much later, I guess. A quick thing about phone videos. There's this new video format in town. You might have heard of it. It's called HEVC. And let me know if you've heard of HEVC Okay, something's happening here. Anyways, sorry. With HEVC, what happens is that it kind of like crunches your video so that it's high efficiency. Now, whenever you hear something like high efficiency or web, what do they call it? Like web optimized, that doesn't mean it's beautiful. It doesn't mean it's high quality. So beware of HEVC codec. And I'm going to have to do a little video for how you disable that. And when shooting on your phone, when filming on your phone, make sure, hi Diva La Voice, hi Sharvani, hi Boldy Girl. So when you're filming on your phone, make sure that you have HEVC off. And this is a big one, when you get your files from your phone to your computer, you need to make sure that your files are not getting crunched further. So the best ways to get your videos off of your phone are send the video through Dropbox, or you can send the video through iCloud. Or if you're on an iPhone and you're working with a Mac, you can use AirDrop, and AirDrop works great as well. And don't text message to yourself. Don't email it to yourself. Oh, good God. If you do that on an iPhone, it is just a hot mess. What happens is it just takes your video and it's like, oh, let's make this really tiny for your phone. And then you open it up on your computer and you're like, I spent $1,000 on this phone. Why is this video so crappy? And it's just because it was trying to compress it for your email, okay? So don't use email, text messaging, or WhatsApp, or anything else that's gonna have to make it super tiny, okay? All right, so those are good ways. One other would be Google Drive. So my Premiere is opening, and let's continue talking about the architecture of Premiere Pro. So the project file comes out, right? And it's a PR proj, and you're gonna notice that it's really, really tiny in file size. Tiny in file size. And the other thing you're gonna notice is that Premiere will make a lot of junk files for you if you're not careful. And I'm gonna just say PR to be cool. Junk files if you're not careful. So what does this mean? You gotta stay really organized, because the reason it's staying tiny in file size is that it is referencing, which is to say it's talking about your files that it's importing, rather than embedding. So this is kind of like when you're working with HTML, right? When you're working with HTML, HTML files tend to be really small, but if you opened an HTML file or like a website when your computer was offline, unless those images were cached, HTML references images on a server, right? But if you've ever worked with Photoshop, Photoshop eats files. It embeds them. So the Photoshop file keeps getting bigger. Photoshop embeds. Premiere references. So you need to stay super careful. Stay organized for best results. Okay? All right. So I'm going to move my Premiere over here. And I'm going to make sure I can see you guys in my live stream. Sweet. Keep it secret, keep it safe. Sorry. If you could go back to that link, it should work fine, okay? Because I just fixed the permissions. All right. So here is my Premiere, and this is the welcome screen, right? So the first thing you want to do is make a new project, and you should totally unzip that stuff that I sent you guys, because you're gonna need it. And we're gonna just jump right in using the Kids in Rain folder, and there's these things right here that you guys are gonna be able to use. So I'm gonna just make an empty project, and I'm gonna talk you through what all the parts of the thing are, and then because some of you are still downloading the files, I'll go back and do the importing and all that stuff. So you do a new project, okay? And when you do a new project, it opens up this window which says, hey, you should name your project. Unlike other Adobe applications, Premiere won't even let you start working unless it saves your file. I know, that's so amazing. So Premiere makes you save before you start working. And this is fantastic because it has this thing called autosave. And with autosave, it saves every X number of minutes, which makes life so much easier. So I'm going to give this a title. I'm just going to call this test for now. I'm going to browse over to my Kids in Rain folder. And I'm just going to save my project file loose in there. And what I do a lot of times is I'll put the date on it so that I know that this is when I was working on it. And then maybe I'll have like a new folder in here and I'll put my old edits. So I always leave my most recent edit loose, and then I'll have my old edits in a separate folder. So I'm gonna select that folder. Whoops, cancel. Select the Kids in Rain folder. Ta-da! And choose select. And then you gotta go over to scratch disks. Now here's the thing about Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro generates lots of junk files, and I often describe these junk files as like the Post-its and gum wrappers that are on my desk. By the end of the week, I have a ton of Post-its and gum wrappers all over my desk, and you know what? They are not necessary in my life, so I usually just chuck them. There's nothing important on them. I will make more Post-its and gum wrappers, and it's not going to make any difference to the projects I'm working on. However, if someone told me that I couldn't put Post-its and gum wrappers on my desk, I don't think I'd be able to work. So Premiere's the same way. It generates these junk files, and unless you want junk files all over your computer, you should probably tell it where to save them. So you should go to your scratch disks here, and you're going to click on not same as project. I usually do browse, and then inside of my Kids in Rain folder, I would put that into a scratch folder there. Okay, and that just keeps all the junk files in one spot. Now, some of these junk files are useful, like your autosave ends up in this folder, but wouldn't you want to know where your autosave is saved? Because otherwise you're going to be in a panic situation when your computer crashes, takes your Premiere project with you, and you don't know where your backup projects are saved. So I saved to that scratch folder. Okay, so how are we doing? Who's with me here? So I saved to that scratch folder, and unfortunately it doesn't automatically save everything else to that scratch folder. You have to just click browse and choose. So browse, and it either says choose or select folder, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC. And I just click, and then I hit return every time. Okay. And that like saves everything to the same folder, which is awesome. And then I can hit OK, and come on, any day now. Here we go. Here is my Premiere. So the way that Premiere is set up is somewhat similar to After Effects, except the windows are in different places. So if you're familiar with After Effects, you're in luck because Premiere is quite similar. Now, your workspace might look different from mine. And if your workspace looks different from mine, here's what you need to do. You need to go to Window, Workspaces, Editing. The editing workspace will have just the stuff you need to use, and then you can do reset to saved after you choose editing. So first choose editing, and then go workspaces, reset to saved layout, and then that puts all the windows in like the factory settings. So whatever the programmers originally intended for editing is now all set up. Okay, next you're going to, I'm going to tell you what all the windows are. So in the lower left corner, we have our project window, and our project window contains all the things that you import into Premiere, just like in After Effects, or it's like a library if you think of it as like a repository for all your stuff. So all the things you import into Premiere end up in the project window, but also all the things, almost all the things that you make in Premiere also end up in this folder. Then we've got our toolbox, which is randomly located in the middle here. There's really only a couple tools you need, so that's okay. Over on the right, we have our timeline. And the timeline is like your map of how things are arranged. In the upper left corner, we have our source viewer, which allows you to see things in kind of isolation mode, independent of your program, which reflects what's going on in the timeline. So your timeline is like your map of your video, of your edit, and your program shows you the whole edit. Okay? All right. So how are we doing? Everybody got their files? Everything working okay? All right. So I'm going to close her up and then I'm going to reopen again. Now, something to know about Premiere Pro. Okay, the thing to know about Premiere Pro is that while you can have more than one project open, I don't recommend it because it tends to get really confusing. Unless you're working on related projects. So let's say you're working on a 30-second edit and a 60-second edit that use the same content. If that's the case, fine. Have more than one project open at the same time so that you can share assets between the projects, assets being the things you import. If your projects are unrelated, don't do it. Keep them separated. So File, Close Project. Now, one thing that I always did when I first started using After Effects and Premiere, don't judge, is on a Mac, there's that little red button, right? And I'm a recent convert to a PC, can you tell? When I was working on a Mac, I would be like, oh, I want to close this project. And I'd click the little red button and it would quit everything. It was so annoying. So you don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to close the little red button or the little X up here. It's just going to quit everything. So you go File menu, Close Project to close your project. All right. So let me show you something in the stuff that I've sent you, okay? So in the stuff that I sent you, inside of PR Basics Assets, there's Kids in Rain, and then there's this Premiere template. And if you're doing a project that involves Premiere, I highly recommend that you duplicate this folder and use that for your Premiere aspect. So we're going to go to the Kids in Rain. That's where we're going to be doing all our work. But I just wanted to orient you to why I have this Premiere template. It's so that in the future, when you're working with Premiere on your own, you can just duplicate this and use it for your purposes. All right, so here we are. Here's my welcome screen. If anyone has a question at this point, of course, please let me know. Just drop it into the chat. Okay, so I'm going to do a new project. And again, if you just tuned in, you can download the project files. They are all located in a link that I've linked you to in the chat. So check out the chat and there's a bit.ly link that I posted and the permissions have been fixed and you should be good. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to make a new project, and if you're playing along, and you can if you want to, just download those files, do new project, and then I'm going to save my project under a special name. It should be unique. And in this name field, I'm just going to call it kids_edit. Okay. Then I click over to scratch disks. And your scratch disks are probably all set to same as project. And what you need to do is click on Browse, navigate over to where that stuff actually lives now, like the stuff that you downloaded from my Google Drive. You're going to go to Scratch. You're going to go to Scratch and you're just going to choose that folder and hit Select Folder. Okay. And then you're going to hit Browse and hit Return in order to keep, everything in the same folder. And again, those Scratch files are really mostly junk files that Premiere needs in order to operate. So can you rebuild them? Yes. It might take a few minutes, but it's not the end of the world. It's not like you're deleting the files that you had imported into Premiere. It's just thinking files that Premiere generates as it's working. So this is part of how Premiere is set up. It has to make these extra files. And these include preview files for video, for audio, and your autosave. Okay, when you go back to General, this is where you can change your renderer, but you can change all this stuff later. I'll show you how. Okay, so I'm gonna say okay to that. And I want you to change your workspace first and foremost. So go to the Workspaces section and go to Reset to Saved Layout. After you choose, sorry, you want to choose editing first. So Window, Workspaces, Editing. And then you're going to do Window, Workspaces, and you're going to do Reset to Saved. And I just noticed that my face is kind of covering up some of the interface here. Get it? Interface. Sorry. So I'm just going to move this window a little bit so that it doesn't get cut off here. I think that should do the trick. Okay. All right, good. All right, so we're gonna import some things, and importing things into Premiere Pro is super easy. Let me show you. So what you do is first, you're going to, just checking out the size for this window. I gotta make it even smaller. Okay, that's better. And then I'm gonna go to, sorry, my kid is here. I'm in a class.
Coffee delivered.
He has coffee. Just a moment. Aw, thanks, buddy.
Why did you say, I really wish you, you know
It's
what?
a live stream, boo-boo.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. I had coffee delivered. My son made coffee for me. Sorry about that. Alrighty. So, here we go. We're going to import our files. I click on the little folder down below, or go to my desktop, and I want to go to my Kids in Rain media folder, okay? And inside of the media folder, we have audio, graphics, and videos. Zach says, bless the children who deliver you coffee. I know, I've raised them really well. So we don't have any graphics here, but I know, and he's like not even 9 years old yet. I'm like, yeah, I'm blessed. So we have a Kids in Rain folder, we have media, and we have we just really have audio and videos, okay? So we have a music file and we have some videos. So we're just gonna select the audio folder. We're gonna Command or Control click. If you're on a Mac, of course, it's Command click to get them out of order. And then you're gonna drag both those folders. So you gotta have your Finder or Explorer window like right on top of your Premiere, because otherwise this isn't gonna work. And then you drag those folders over to your project window. It's awesome. So now we have our stuff, okay? But this stuff is nothing without a proper timeline. So we need to have a timeline where we can see all the things in context, okay? So this is really important. And all right. So in order to create the timeline, yes, you could drop media here. I know, that's so tempting, right? Whenever it says drop media here or click this giant button, we all want to click that giant button, but that's not really the best way to do this, because if we double click these videos, they're going to open up in the source window and we'll see some information about them. But let me show you a little secret. If you take your mouse and you hover it in the lower left corner and you hit the tilde key. Now this is located immediately below the escape key and it looks like a little squiggle. And you go bloop, there we go. Look at how huge these video files are, folks. My video files are 3840 by 2160. I know, that's nuts. So let me get my magnifier. Nope. Not coming. All right. Anyways, so this is 3840 by 2160. That is huge. So if I made my timeline, those dimensions, that would be a UHD file, and I don't want that. And you can click the, you can hit the little squiggle key to get out of that view, and it's kind of magical. You can just hover your mouse in any window and hit that tilde key, also known as the ish key for people who are time casual. So they'll say like I'm squiggle 11, I'll be here at a squiggle 11 o'clock. So hover and tilde, and it'll just take you in and out of full screen view for that particular interface window. Okay. All right. I'm just making this a tiny bit tinier. Okay. There we go. Brilliant. So we're going to make a sequence with very specific settings, and your sequence settings are going to be different depending on who you're making the video for. So if you're doing a client project, before you even start gathering assets or filming anything, you have to find out where it's going to be shown. And depending on where it's going to be shown, that's going to determine your sequence settings. Your sequence, of course, being your edit. So you go to File menu, New, and you choose Sequence. Now it's kind of cool because all this stuff, or at least most of this stuff, is also located down at the bottom of the interface where it says New Item. So when you hover over these different things, you can click on New Item and you get all these different options. So you could choose Sequence from there, or you can do File menu, New, Sequence. Ta-da! Okay, so there's all these formats, and some of you are probably like, oh cool, where's the Instagram format? Yeah, so Adobe didn't get the memo that there's this thing called social media that has really specific settings. So there is no Instagram setting. Sorry. So you've got to set it up yourself if you're going to do a thing for Instagram. You would go to Digital SLR, and inside the Digital SLR section, you're going to go to 1080p, and you want to choose 1080p 30. And that would be like your first step. And that will set you up for HD. Awesome. Then if you wanted it to be for Instagram, and I know many of you are like, I need it for Instagram. You're going to click over to settings and you're going to change your frame size. So that first number under video frame size, you're going to change that to 1080. It needs to match because it's square, right? So 1080 by 1080. Now, if you were doing something for Instagram stories, you would change this to the horizontal would stay 1080 here, but then your vertical would be 1920. Okay, so then it would be 9 by 16. I'm gonna do this at my regular, I'm gonna do this sequence presets. I'm gonna, once again, I'll just go through it again with you guys. DSLR 1080p 30, go to settings, and then change this to 1080. So I'm gonna do this at the Instagram settings, and I'm also gonna change my time base. So I can edit at 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second. Let's do 30, okay? Now, if you change stuff in this window where it says settings, don't go back to sequence presets because it's gonna get rid of all that stuff you did, okay? And I always click okay before I name it because the sequence name section is all the way at the bottom. So if you hit okay and you're like, oh, I forgot, I was supposed to change stuff, you can click on the sequence and you can go to sequence menu, sequence settings, and you can change even the dimensions and frame rate. That's good. Oh, whoops. To rename it, you would right click or control click and choose rename, or you can just very gently click and click again slowly, and then you can type in the new name. So I'm going to call this Kids Rain, and then I'm going to call this Sequence. Yay. I just put a little SEQ in case if I forget what this icon means. And the icon has these 3 bars on top of each other and a little time thingy scrubbing through it. And look, this is my program monitor. It's beautiful. Okay. So let's take a look at what we have and put this all together. Okay, so something that those of us who started as visual artists may not know about film editing, especially when it comes to social media video editing, is that you really want to start with your audio. If you start with your audio, you basically have a roadmap for how you want your shots to show up. And I have 1, 2, 3 video shots that I'm going to put in here. So I'm going to take my audio and I'm going to double click on it. And anytime you double click on something, whether it's down here in the project window or over here in the timeline, it's gonna open up in your source viewer. So if I double click puddle, I get that, kids, I get them, and double click my Wind Riders audio and it opens up here, okay? And I can play it through. So there are many ways to edit audio, but I find that the most important thing when you're editing audio is the intentional audio ending. Think about it. You go to a birthday party. I'm talking a kid's birthday party. You go to a kid's birthday party. How do you know the party's over? They've cut the cake. They've opened the presents. They're handing out party bags. Or the mom says, "Oh, Jimmy, your mom's here." And like the parents all start coming in, right? So it's nice to know when the party's ending. So you want to really think about the ending of your music almost before the beginning. I know, it seems weird, but like I always like to play the end of the music and just see if it makes sense. Ooh, that's nice. That's very ending-y. I love it. And let's play the beginning. It's kind of monotonous. Let's play from here. Wow. This is... All right, so I'm going to stitch together a little bit from the beginning and a little bit from the end. Now, some of you might be wondering, like, why are you editing this music, Kalika? Like, can't you just find music that's the right duration? You can, but your options are really limited if you're just looking for music that's exactly the length of the thing that you're making. So what I like to do is broaden my horizons a little bit, listen to all the music, and you'll see here that we've got some numbers, okay? So the numbers on the left indicate where this little mini playhead is located. And you can scrub, which means that you're playing through it frame by frame, or you can play by hitting this little mini play button, and it's gonna play you through and it's going to play your music. It's beautiful. And if you wanna zoom in on this, you can drag these little balls closer together. I know that's weird, but that's how you zoom in. And that gives you a closer up view. Now, this number over here on the right, it says 2:13:25. And that is what is known as time code. And if you've never met time code before, time code, let me just get us up here. Time code is a way of locating us in time, just like how our date and time tell us when we're located now. So time code situates us or tells us when we are located in time. And there's time code for the source and there's time code for the program. And so if we look here, this is the source on the left, this is the music we're editing in, and over here on the right, that has its time code as well. And if I drag the playhead, see how that number on the left-hand side changes. Okay, there's no content in there, so my program monitor might be acting a little bit funky. Okay, so this is source time, this is program time. And over on the right, this is duration, or how long does it last, right? So duration is the distance between either the beginning and the end of the stuff that's there, or it's, come on, there, bloop. Okay, it's either the beginning to the end of the stuff that's there, or what is marked by your in and out points, okay? So if I'm playing this back, it doesn't start right away. So I'm gonna zoom in on this just by pulling those balls together, and I'm gonna drag this over here to the side, and I'm gonna click this little left frilly bracket, which is right next to the marker thingy. Click, and that sets the in point for my music, and I'm gonna play this. And if I click the right frilly bracket, that marks the out, and it's gonna tell me the duration over on the side. But what do these numbers really mean? So what we've got is hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. Okay. And usually when you're editing promos, all that really matters are these last two. Okay. Just seconds and frames. So if we're looking at 2 colon or semicolon 10, that's 2 seconds and 10 frames. The semicolon just means that this is the kind of time code that it is. So a semicolon means that it's drop frame time code. And you can just read it as if it's a regular colon. So semicolon is drop frame time code. Read it the same as this. Okay, so 2 seconds and 10 frames. 10 frames. Now, if you're working with like 30 frames per second, what that means is, sorry people who weren't really good at math, if you get to 2 seconds and 29 frames, your next frame is actually going to be 3 seconds and 0 frames. Okay, so you carry the 1 when you get to 30 because it's 30 frames per second. Okay, so going back to our Premiere, I think that like around 10 or 12 seconds should be fine for this because it's really only 3 shots. I like that do 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 do. Okay, I'm tone deaf, but you know what I mean. It's like that low thing at the end. Okay, and please, if you have any questions as I'm going through this stuff, leave a note in the chat and I will answer it when I see it. Okay. I think right around there would probably be a good spot to end it. So I'm going to put my mark out and then I'm going to rewind to the beginning, which I can do just by clicking on this go to in, which is like the little frilly with the arrow point, well, frilly with the arrow pointing that way. So, wait, is it, let me see. Yeah, so frilly with the arrow pointing that way. Okay, so I go back, there we go, and I can set my in point there. Now, what if you screw up your ins and your outs? Then you can go to the markers section and choose clear in and out. Yeah, pretty sweet, right? Okay, so let's play this. But the problem when you play it back is it goes past the end. Yeah, that's like well past the end. So what do you want to do? Well, what you got to do is you have to set up your source. So it's just going to play back what's in your in to out. And you can do this by adding buttons to this panel here. Yeah, these little things are called buttons. Who knew? So click on the little plus, which is your button editor. And that lets you add buttons to this little panel, which is pretty great. And there's this little panel, like a little button, and if you hover your mouse over it, it says play video in to out. And you can drag that down. See that? And I just put it down at the bottom here. Or you can drag it between other things. I don't like to. I like it. All my custom buttons I like putting at the bottom. So I'm like, yeah, these are the ones I added. And then I hit OK because that just added the button to the panel. And then after I've added the button to the panel, then I can use it. It's like if you just added a new button to your keyboard on your computer, you would need to install it first, right? Before you can use it. Yeah, this is like installation. So I press the button to play it and nothing's happening. Okay. It is not letting me do it. Ordinarily, it will let you play just the in to the out, which is pretty nice. Mine is not allowing me to do it because of whatever reason. Who knows? Probably has to do with these system issues. Anyways, how do you get this audio into your timeline? Well, first you want to rewind your playhead in the timeline. Have it start at 0. Come on. Then you want to grab this audio and drag it over. And you're like, hello, I'm trying to drag. It's totally not working. You want to to bring audio in, it's like very specific. So you want to grab this little like drag audio only thingy downstairs into the audio section. And then you can zoom in. You can be like, hey, there you are, little guy. But it's not really that little. Okay, so then I can play this back. And what I'm noticing right away as I'm playing this back is this audio panel here, okay? And the audio panel is telling me how loud the music is. You can't really trust your headphones because my headphones and your headphones are like totally gonna be different in terms of how loud they are, and what my computer's set to is gonna be different than what your computer or phone is gonna be set to. So we have to kind of make our audio be a particular level in order to have it jive on everybody's audio playback devices. And you always want to err on the side of having your audio be too quiet because you don't want to hurt people's poor ears. That would be so sad. So what you want to do is you want to watch this playback. And this audio meter is telling you how loud your music is. And it's based on decibels. Decibels, 0 decibels is actually really loud. Yeah, I know. And then all these numbers are actually negative decibels. So you want this to be like around -9. Like that's like the highest it should bounce. I've learned from hard experience that it's best to have your audio be too quiet because otherwise people, they swipe away. So how do you drop the audio levels? Well, there's an easy way to do this. If all you've got is one music track, dude, just go to your window, audio track mixer, okay? And the audio track mixer will let you take your master audio and drag it down. And just dragging it down to like, I don't know, maybe -7.5 might do the trick. And that's a little bit too quiet. Now, if you suspect, like, you know, when you're working on a project and you're like, oh, brother, this is just going to keep getting bigger. If you suspect that they might want to add a voiceover or some sound effects, don't adjust the master. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. You can reset the master just by clicking in here and typing 0 and return. Locate A1. And you always want to build like your video track 1 and your audio track 1 like first, okay? And then you do video track 2 on top. And it's very much like when you're making a sandwich. So like the most basic sandwich is basically just like bread, right? You have bread and you have another one bread and they're like on top of each other. And then if you like started adding more ingredients, like let's say your bread actually had seeds on it, maybe your seeds would be on like V2. And then if your like audio had another track to it, so not just music, maybe you had sound effects, then the sound effects would build down. So don't have it like all randomly checkerboarded. You can just keep it starting with V1 and A1, video track 1, audio track 1, then video track 2, audio track 2, and so on. Okay? All right. So how are we doing here? If you have any questions, of course, put that into the comments. Moving on. So you would go to your audio track 1 and you would drag that down, and I think maybe like around -6 should do. Gets louder. Okay, so that's pretty sweet. And then I can, I want to add that little end bit of the music, right? So I double click on the music again, but the problem is I already have my in and out chosen. So I got to clear those. And the cool thing is that because I've double clicked the music from the project window, from that library, it opened it in the source window again. But this guy, he's separate. So changing stuff on this clip is like a whole new clip. You don't have to re-import it just to use it twice. So I'm going to go to markers, clear in and out, and then I'm going to locate that last flourish because I thought that was pretty nice. And it's just a chord. I like that last chord. So let's zoom in. right there. I like that bit. So I'm just going to click the in and then grab the audio again and drag it down. Yeah, let's play that back. It probably sounds terrible. Now it's hard to see what's going on here because the track is so short. So let's make the track a little bit taller just by hovering between A1 and A2 and pulling downward. Okay? And when nothing is selected, you'll see the waveform more clearly, and I can zoom in on that a little. It's pretty good. Now, the easiest way, which doesn't always work, to combine two chunks of audio is really to create a little cross dissolve in between. So if you have two clips right next to each other, first you want to click the little timeline display settings wrench, and I want to turn off audio keyframes. That's because I don't want to by hand be adjusting my audio. But if I hover with my selection tool over the seam between these two clips and I go right click, apply default transitions, it creates what's called a constant power fade, which is really like a cross dissolve. And I can play that back, and I want to give it a little extra time in the beginning. So let's just zoom out a bit. Using these little balls again, I go back. That's not terrible. Now, if that doesn't work for you, if you're like, dude, this is not working, there are some other tricks that you can do to get your audio to end smoothly. The easiest trick would be to just fade it out, just a straight up fade. So how do you do that? Let me just demonstrate that for you by duplicating this sequence. So you can right click a sequence and you can choose duplicate, and I'm going to call this sequence with fade. Double click that guy, and I'm gonna just delete that little nugget that has my fade, and I'm gonna, dragging from source to timeline, no problem, Sally. Let me show you how to do that again. So if you want to drag from source to timeline, you want to hover with your selection tool over the little drag audio only, and then it gives you a little fist, and then you drag it down. Now that's only if you're just dragging audio or just dragging video from like a clip that has audio and video associated. Another way that you can move it across, it would be to drag it from here and then doing insert, like just dragging from source to program. But what I had been doing was dragging it down into the timeline. Okay? And so I'm going to delete that guy. And I'm going to pull this out just a touch, like maybe, I don't know, a couple of seconds. And I'm going to right click at the end. See how when I hover my mouse, look, Ma, no hands. I'm hovering my mouse. I'm not clicking, just hovering. And it gives me this red brackety thing. And the red brackety thing, if I right click, I can choose apply default transitions. And it gives me this nugget. And then I can double click on the nugget and I can set how long I want it to be. Now remember, this is time code. It is not frames. So if you're dealing with like 2 seconds, you got to type 2 seconds colon 0 frames, okay? And then it'll extend it to 2 seconds. Alternatively, if you're not jiving on this whole like timeline, time code thing, no sweat. Just hover over the end of this and drag it longer to make it a longer fade, and drag it shorter to make a shorter fade. Pretty nice. So there we go. I can play this back. And it just fades out, and it's fine. Sometimes that's all you need. So don't freak out if audio is not your forte. But I'm telling you, if you sing in the shower, if you sing in the car, if you go to dance parties, if you do jazzercise or Zumba or played the piano when you were a kid or were in the marching band, if you have any kind of rhythm, you can do this. Heck, even if you don't have rhythm, there are ways of editing audio where all you're looking at are the peaks and the valleys and you just line them up. So, and then worst case, you hire somebody to do it. So in certain projects, you can hire somebody to do your audio for you. There are people who just do audio. Matter of fact, there are students who will do audio for you and they are brilliant, but they're green. So just give them extra time and maybe buy them some food and they'll be good. So yeah, don't sweat it if audio is not your thing. You can always fade it out at the end or hire somebody else to do it, or learn it just by practicing. Like anything else, just keep practicing. Okay, so the fade. Yay, I love the fade. Now, to customize your fades, you're going to have to go to your preferences. Now, on a PC, preferences are located in the Edit menu. On a Mac, they're located in the Premiere Pro menu. Either way, they look quite similar. So under Preferences, you're going to go to Timeline. And inside of the Timeline preferences, you can set up how long your transitions last for. So my video transitions, I can set them to be 1 second long. My audio transitions, I can set them to be 1 second long or 2 seconds long, however long I think I'm going to need them. And my favorite is the still image default duration, because you can bring in a photo or a still image or a graphic, and you can have it last for as long or as short as you want. So if you're doing like a stop motion project, you could time it out in Premiere, no problem, and then just change seconds to frames and have this set up to be like 3 frames, and each of your little frames will come in at 3 frames. It's brilliant. All of these numbers can change really, really easily. So again, don't sweat it if your timeline settings are not perfect every time. Everything is customizable in Premiere Pro. That's why people see it as having so many barriers to entry. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to keep track of, but you have so much flexibility once you master all of those things. Okay. All right. So that was a little bit about preferences. I'll do a whole separate thing on preferences. Don't you worry. So I've got one with the fade and I've got one with the little timey ending, whatever. So let's add some video to this. I'm going to zoom way the heck out. I'm going to go to the beginning here. And it's usually not a good idea to have your audio start like boom right away. I usually give it like, I don't know, maybe about a second to start off with. So I can click on the time code here and just type in 1 dot, and that'll take my playhead to 1 second. And to move these clips, like if you want to select all the clips on one track, I have a cool tool for you. It's called the Track Select Forward tool. And you click the Track Select Forward tool, you click here, and it's going to select everything. So if you had video and audio, it'll select all that. And then you can take your selection tool and move to the right. Now see how mine's kind of magnetizing? That's because I got this snappy thing turned on. Snap. So there's a couple of hotkeys that are really helpful for Premiere Pro, but you don't need a ton of them. And the hotkeys that I recommend are S for snap, V for selection tool, because it kind of looks like an arrow, right? Letter V. You have C for your cut tool, cut, and it's also known as the razor blade. And then you also, razor blade, and then you have shift, which is to add stuff, and your usual like command or control to deselect stuff. And then the one that I just showed you was T for track select forward. And you can do shift with that to only select one track. Okay? Yay. All right. So again, if there's any questions, please drop them into the chat or leave a comment and I'll be happy to answer those as soon as I can. All right. So I've moved everything forward by a second. And in case you missed it, I'm just going to undo a couple of times. Grab up my track select forward, click right here, click on the time code and type 1 dot, and then use that selection tool to just go forward by 1 click. All right. And if you don't want it to start so loud, you can right click the end, apply default transitions there, and just make it half a second. And at 30 frames per second, half a second is going to be like 15 frames. Again, you can alternatively just drag it. It's fine. So if I want this to be half as long, it doesn't need to be a perfect half. Just drag it till it sounds good. Just a little fade. Yeah, it's a little less abrasive that way. All right, now comes the fun part. We are going to drag our video in there. Yeah, video. So we've got a puddle, we've got boots, and we've got kids. Okay, so let's put our puddle in there first. Let's double click puddle. And if I just dragged puddle like this, you see how it comes with video and audio and it like obliterates my audio? That is not cool. But if I just want the video part, I can do just like I did with the audio. I can just grab the video only and drag it down. And this clip happens to be kind of the same everywhere. So if I play this back, it's like, yeah, it's like the same everywhere. So it doesn't really matter. Generally speaking, unless I can help it, I try not to use the very, very beginning of a shot, but sometimes you can, sometimes you need to. Okay, so I have this shot in here. Let's just play through our music and see where would be good to put the other shots. And I like that da 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 da. So that's where I'm going to put the boots. It's like right around here. So here be my boots. Double click. Okay. And I can just drag this, but I want it to start on this frame, so I have to click the in and drag the video. Alternatively, I can just drag it on down from the picture. Okay. All right, and I'm already starting to see that like, these videos are various sizes. What do I do about that? So this video, the puddle, if I hover and I hit the tilde to expand it to fill the frame, I can see that it's 1282 by 720. So it's actually smaller than my frame. Let's see how big we need to make it in order to get it to expand. So what I do in order to make it larger, I double click the clip. That opens the clip from the timeline's source in the source viewer. So this, when I double click, is different than when I double click from here. When I double click from the project window, it shows me everything in its full glory. It shows me the entire clip. When I double click the clip here, it cuts off, like it has the ins and the outs defined. It also shows me how it's getting cropped. So if I need to change the size of this, I can go over to Effect Controls. I can go to Scale, and by clicking on Scale and increasing that value, just by dragging it to the right, see how it's getting bigger? Now my personal cutoff for scale is 150, and we just made it, folks. We just made it to 150. So that scaled it up to 150, and if you wanted to move this over to the side, you could just drag it inside this little blue box to the left. And as you drag it, if you hold the Shift key down, you'll be able to see, like you'll be able to lock it to that horizontal. Beautiful. That's really a much better composition than what I had before. And those boots are comically large. They're terrifying at that size. Let's make them smaller. So if you click once, it'll open it in Effect Controls, but I always double click so that I'm sure that I've got the right clip. And then I'll scale those boots smaller. Okay. Now, these boots are going in slow motion. I think they're a little too slow for my taste, so I'm going to make them slightly faster. So if I right click on the boots and I go to speed and duration, I can change the speed. So if you want to make it faster, you have to make the speed higher. So if you're used to After Effects where you're using time stretch, it's the converse of time stretch. Like the math is inverted. It is so confusing. I'm pretty good at math and it confuses me. So you increase this amount and it makes your duration shorter, which means it's getting faster. Okay. And I hit okay. And I usually do this like as I edit. Okay. And then maybe right there, I want to go to the kids because the kids are adorable and who wants to just sit there watching boots? Am I right? So I double click on the kids and there they are. And I don't see anybody face. And that's okay for the first part. So I'm going to click, like, let's see. I mean, this little girl in the green coat is definitely the star of the show here. She's just so sparkly. I love watching her. So I want to highlight her. So let's just give her a little love at the beginning here. I'm just going to give it a mark in at about 1 second. And then I'm going to advance. And yeah, oh, that's so beautiful. All right, so it's not going to be longer than 10 seconds. Who am I kidding? So I just drag the video. And with video that doesn't have audio with it, you can just drag from the picture window downward. Alternatively, you can drag the little video only down into here, okay? And once again, the video is huge. So I've got a trick for you. If you just want to really quick resize your video so that it fits in the frame, you can right click and you can choose set to frame size. Now what you might notice is that there's also this thing called scale to frame size. Oh, it makes me crazy. So scale to frame size is like the meanie bean option and set to frame size is awesome. I'll show you why. So if I have this clip in my source viewer, right? And I right click and I choose scale to frame size. See how it scaled it down? Yay. Then I go to my effect controls and my scale still reads as 100%. Not cool. The only indication that I have that I've applied scale to frame size is that this is checked when I right click. I know, super annoying. So I want to turn that off and I want to choose set to frame size. Now, I used to always get confused about this until I remembered that awesome song by Salt and Peppa, Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. So you want to choose Let's Talk About Set, Baby. So that's how I remember it. Let's talk about set. There we go. Told you, tone deaf. Anyways, now, oh, thank goodness for set. I love set. It set my scale to 28.1. So I can increase my scale. And I can drag the position over. Now, if you're not getting your interactive controls, just click the word motion or any of the words underneath of it and just move it on over like that. Okay, and make sure there's no black top and bottom. Nice. So they're like nicely composed there. Beautiful. All right, cool. So I want to stop with her like looking like this because she's just so sparkly. So you can mark your clips, which is pretty nice, just by right clicking. Is that how I usually do it? Add marker? Nope. Sorry, I have an easier way. Just click the clip, hit the letter M on your keyboard. M for marker. And what I want is for this to like extend longer, okay? Like I want to really relish this child enjoying herself. So once again, I'm going to use the speed option. Let me show you a cool trick here. So we want this. Yeah, that's right, Zach. Set it and forget it. So right here, I want this clip to last as long as this cut until the end of the music. So I can define what that duration is pretty easily. I place my playhead on that cut. And if you want to go between cuts, just make sure that your little nuggets here are turned on and use your up and down keys. Okay? So up takes you to the previous cut, down on your keyboard takes you to the next cut. I'm going to hit the letter I for in point, or I could click this little mark in little squiggle, right? The frilly bracket. And then I can go down arrow a couple of times and I can do the right bracket or letter O, doesn't matter. And look, it tells me how long that is. It says the in to out duration is 10:25. Then I'm going to shorten this clip so that it ends on that beautiful frame of that child or near it. Okay, so maybe like right there. Okay, let's zoom in more. It should snap, but if it doesn't snap, you kind of have to supervise. Yeah, it snapped. You'll feel it. It's like a magnet. It's like, remember when our refrigerators were magnetic? It's very similar to that sensation. So I'm going to zoom out, and you can zoom in and out using the plus and minus keys on your keyboard. Okay. And right here, I'm going to put that into our notes. So plus and minus keys on the number line of keyboard zooms in and out of timeline. Alternatively, you can use the Z tool. Yeah, just like Photoshop. Zoom tool. Okay. And you can zoom into the timeline. It's pretty great. So Z for zoom tool, and you can zoom in, hold the Option or Alt key to zoom out. Okay, so what I've done is what I've done here is I've created the clip that I want, and I've defined how long I actually want it to last. If I double click on the clip, it opens it in my source, effects, all that stuff for placement. But for timing, you gotta right click and choose speed and duration. And I gotta alert you to something really sketchy about Premiere. So Premiere likes to not tell you stuff when you right click on it sometimes. Sometimes when you control click or right click, you're just gonna be like, dude. And of course I can't replicate it when it's working. But sometimes you'll just get like this tiny little useless menu and you'll be like, what is going on? Like, where are all my options? So if that happens to you, you have to go to the clip menu and then all your stuff is there. Like you have to go into the different options. Like you have to go to video options in order to choose my BFF set to frame size. You have to, you know, choose speed and duration by hand, but like all the stuff is there. Yeah, I know. So speed and duration, and look, this time code over here on the right, this is telling me how long my in to out section is, which you'll recall is from the beginning of the kids shot until the end of the music. Okay, so it's 10 seconds and 25 frames. My clip is, according to my clip speed and duration field, 7 seconds and 29 frames. But if I type in 10.25 into the duration section, it calculates my speed for me. It's going to make it slower so that it lasts long enough. I love it. I hit OK. Nice. Let's play that back. And we can give that a fade if we want to. You know, we can do a video fade just like we did with the audio fade. Just right click at the end of your video clip, apply default transitions, and drag it so it lasts longer. Okay? That's so nice, isn't it? Go back to the beginning. So now we can add some other stuff to this, right? So I can take my puddle and maybe I want to add like a little title card to it. Just put a little text in the middle. We'll call it like Rainy Day Parade. Sure. If you are doing something for broadcast, you probably want to have your title and action safety guides up. In general, when I'm doing stuff for social, I just try to stay clear of like the outer 10%. So you want to click on the button editor, grab up your title and action safe margins and drag that down. Okay, hit OK and then click that again. And by the way, I'm planning to wrap up right around like 10:30 or so. Okay, so here's my title and action safe, and I'm noticing that my puddle shot is just a tiny bit black on top. And if I hit the tilde with my mouse right here, see that little black line? That is so gross. Let's not do that, okay? So selection tool, double click the clip, go to effect controls, and in the motion section, if you want to center it vertically, okay, your number for vertical centering on Instagram, I'm going to give you this number, 540, okay? And I had like some random 542 something. So 540 vertical and 150% scale. And again, don't scale bigger than that. Okay, so now I've got my clip. It's beautiful, and I'm going to put type on it. Take your type tool, and the type tool, folks, it's a bit finicky. I'm not going to lie. It's a bit finicky. So you click with your type tool up here, and it creates this graphic layer for your text. Just start typing. I'm telling you, just start typing. So I'm going to call it Rainy Day Parade. Okay. And I know this is like a terrible font and none of this works, but we'll fix it. Now, if you try to fix it right away after you start typing, if you swivel this open and you try to change your font, for example, it doesn't change anything. It just assumes that you want to change what you're going to type next, which is totally crazy. Like, why would you want to add more text in a different font to the same area of text? It makes no sense. So let's take our type tool, and we actually have to highlight all of it with the type tool. Yeah, I know. And then go into this text section and you can change your font. So if anyone has a favorite font, feel free to let me know what that font is. Ooh, that's a little too gimmicky. I think Lust Script seems just wrong for this. Let's see if we have Dido. Yeah, we have something like Dido. Yeah, I think that should be cute. I can change the justification to the center. And if I scroll down, there's a bunch of information, okay? Now, you will notice if you swivel all this stuff open, oh my gosh, it's maddening. I don't know why they do this to us. But there's a section called vector motion, okay? And vector motion has a section for scale, for position and scale. Yay. You scroll down, and then you have transform and a section for position and scale. What? And then you scroll down, and then you have motion and a section for position and scale. Yeah, you can control position and scale from like 3 different places. So how do you remedy this? So when you type, okay, the transform section below the typing information is based on where you clicked in order to start typing. Yeah, super weird. So if you go there and you click this little reset button, it supposedly is going to put it in the center, but it like puts the first line in the center, which looks goofy. So you can click on that and then just drag these values up like this. And then you can make it maybe a little bit bigger just by increasing the font size. I always increase the font size first, like that's my first stop. Now in terms of kerning, you can't really kern in Premiere Pro, not very easily anyways. You would have to select the letter and then you would have to do this whole thing. It's just like drama, okay? So if you're like real particular about kerning, my friends who are graphic designers, you know who you are. You probably don't want to typeset your text in Premiere Pro because it will make you crazy because you're not going to be able to use your like usual hotkeys for kerning. So what you'll have to do instead is create your type in like Photoshop, and then you can import the Photoshop right into here. And let me open Photoshop so that we can do that. Hi, Photoshop. There we go. Okay, so Photoshop is opening. And, all right, I got a smiley from Sharbani. So yeah, kerning, it's some people who are so particular about kerning. She and I both have a friend who's very particular about kerning. Oh my gosh. She will like, basically makes me feel like dirt whenever I kern anything. Like it offends her that my kerning is not Very good. So anyways, I mean, my kerning better than the average person, but it's not better than her. Okay, so I've kerned this a little bit. Now, I'm going to show you in a moment how to bring in text from Photoshop, because some of you are just like way more comfortable there, and that's fine. But first, I'm going to just show you how to adjust this a little bit more. So right here, I'm just going to go to my position section, and there we go. Okay. All right, fine. So that's how you would create text in Premiere Pro. And the duration of the text is determined by whatever you have in your preferences timeline. And in the timeline preferences, the still image default duration determines how long your text lasts. All right. Now, if you were to make this same text, and I'm going to do a 1080 by 1080 file right here, and I'm going to make it black. And since this is not a Photoshop demo, friends, come on. Delete. Yes, delete. I'm just gonna grab some white text and I'm gonna go Dido. Sure. Now, my advice to you, if you are going to be typesetting in Photoshop, is that you make it as big as you think you might need it, just because it's going to make your life so much easier in the long run. Premiere is great at making stuff smaller. It does a beautiful job. But when it comes to making things larger, it sucks at it. So does After Effects. It's just not as smart in terms of the math that it uses for making things bigger and smaller to do a good job with your scaling up. But scaling down, no problem. So I make this text as big as I think I might need it, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. Save as, ooh, I get to use the graphics folder. Oh my gosh. So right here, Kids in Rain, Media, Graphics, and I'm going to call this Text Kids, right? Photoshop, fine. And to kind of cover your bases, you can also save it as a PNG file, just doing your usual export, quick export, right? Yes, okay. And then in Premiere Pro, swivel everybody closed, and I'm just gonna grab that, that text file really quick and throw it right in there. So I'm gonna take the whole graphics folder and move it over. By the way, when you import your when you import a folder like how I showed you with the audio and the videos, if you added more audio or videos, that doesn't automatically update in Premiere. So make sure that if you add more stuff to it and you want it to be in Premiere, you drag it into Premiere, okay? All right, so I got my graphics going on, but I got this lovely error message. Hello, error message. And I can choose to merge all of my layers or select individual layers. And my rainy day parade layer is on and my background is off. So I'm just going to choose to merge all layers. Or I can choose just that, but I prefer to merge. Okay. Okay. Fine. And then I can take Text Kids and drag it on top and see how big it is. If I want to just use one clip and not the other, here's a fun trick. You can right click on the clip you want to temporarily disable, and you can turn off the enable button. Okay. Look at that. So it's still in your timeline, but it's grayed out because you're not really using it. And then this guy, I can make it smaller. And notice there's like no vector motion. There's no options for changing any settings here. But if I went to Photoshop and let's say change the font to my best friend Proxima Nova Medium, which is like super vanilla, sorry. If I saved that and I went back to Premiere, it automatically updates from Photoshop to Premiere. Remember, it's referencing your files. It's not embedding them. It is not eating the files. It's just talking. It's just talking. Okay. So, yeah, so we'll leave that. Fine. It's all right that it's vanilla. And Premiere, hello. Okay, so we've got our text and we've got our video, and you can time the cross dissolves a little bit differently this way, which is nice. Right click, apply default transitions. Nice. And maybe I want my puddle to be blurry for a beat. So I will select my puddle video and I'll go to the effects window. And the effects window, it's like an effects library, really. It's got like all the effects. Whereas your effect controls is like your control panel, right? It's like the difference between actually like looking at all the settings versus looking at all the possibilities for all the different effects that you might be able to add. So I'm going to click into the search area. I'm going to type in Gaussian blur. Sure. And I can drop Gaussian blur right on top of puddle. Now, as it is, it doesn't do anything, but if I increase the blurriness amount, see that? That like allows my text to kind of stand out a bit. If I repeat the edge pixels, it just takes the blur all the way to the edge of the frame, which is also nice. See, that's with the repeat edge pixels turned on. And this is without. With, without. Yeah, it looks better with, right? Okay. One other thing, if we wanted to put a little drop shadow on this, we could. And you can put a drop shadow also through effects. Just typing in drop. And no, this isn't intelligent search. It's not going to correct your spelling if you suck at spelling. So make sure you spell it correctly. Drag and drop. The default drop shadow settings are really ridiculously subtle, so you could increase that. Sometimes I like to just increase it so much that no one can notice it, and I drop the opacity a bit, and then it's just like super subtle, right? You can see what it looks like with and without the drop shadow. And again, I'm placing this drop shadow on the text itself. So if I want to eliminate the, oh, and I know that it's on the text because it says right up here, master text kids.psd. Reset any effect or any property by clicking the little reset button. Yeah, nice. And then you can increase the distance a slight bit and maybe make it slightly soft. And that's not too bad. Okay. And then if we wanted the Gaussian blur to end after a little while, it's pretty easy to do. You would just click on the blurriness amount, go a little bit later, and then reduce the blurriness amount. So notice how I did that. It was so fun. I'm doing it again. So you place your you place your selection tool on top of the stopwatch next to blurriness, which is inside of that Gaussian blur. Turn on the stopwatch, advance a little bit to where you want it to not be blurry anymore, and just drop that to 0. Okay. And unfortunately, you don't see it in the timeline. So if you're used to After Effects, you're like, dude, where's my keyframes? Sorry, guys, they're not there. So if you want to add markers, you totally could. Just hit M for marker. And you can, just like in After Effects, use these little arrow guys to zoom in and out. I mean, to click back and forth. So right here, I can also add a marker. Whoops, in my timeline. So if you have the clip selected, it makes the marker on the clip. If you have the timeline selected, it makes the marker on the timeline. All right, so now I got markers indicating where my keyframes are, which I would need to shift if I needed to. And you can get rid of markers just as easily. Just hit M again. You can be like, dude, delete, and it's gone, right? M for marker. And let's just have the text fade off right here. So I'm just gonna shorten this up and right click, apply default. Let's play that back. Full screen. All right, not too bad. So here we go. I think we might just want to make one other change, and that is that I want everything to kind of start with the music. So I'm just going to shorten that guy up. I'm going to shorten up my other layers. And notice you can also like, let's zoom in on our timeline a little bit. Yeah, right there. You can shorten the layer and it takes the transition with you. It's not too bad. Okay. And then I can put my default transition back right here. And let's add just a cross dissolve between these two shots. Right click on the seam between them with that selection tool and you can get a cross dissolve. It's pretty dope. Give it 2 seconds so it's nice and romantic. Awesome. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to shorten up the end there a little bit. And I'm going to leave this black for a beat. I'm going to leave it black at the beginning. And I'm ready to export. I'm so excited. Let's save this. It's just like voting, people. Save early, save often. Vote early, vote often. All right, so we save and then we're going to export. File, export, media. All right, let me hide Photoshop. Bye, Photoshop. Here we go. So this is my export settings window. And with my export settings window, I can set my format up at the top to H.264. I can set my preset to match source high bitrate. And if I click where it says output name, that blue text is clickable and it'll let you choose where to save it. So I'm going to go to Kids in the Rain and I'm going to make a new folder, call it exports. Okay. And inside of exports, I'm going to hit save. And the match source high bitrate actually works great for Instagram. So I would just leave it at whatever its default settings are. It's going to be like 25 megabytes. Perfect. And if you wanted to keep working in Premiere while this was going on, which I don't recommend, like in terms of ergonomics, like come on, take a break, do some stretching. But if you must go back to Premiere, like let's say you're on a tight deadline, you just wanted to really quick send a work in progress to your client, then maybe you would want to send it to the Adobe Media Encoder queue by clicking the queue button. And that's going to open up Media Encoder and let you export through there. We'll keep all your same settings. You'll be fine. But alternatively, you can just hit export. It's going to export the thing and it'll be done. Be pretty amazing. So I'm going to post all this stuff, the text file that I was typing in, the finished movie. I'll put the work files in the description and so on. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the chat or you can leave me a comment, either or. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I really want that like custom channel URL and I need like a lot of subscribers to get there. I wanted to thank you for your time and attention today. If you have any questions at all, my email address is down in the description. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Bye.